Hey, it's me, AP, aka Mr. Movie Cheer, and welcome back to another episode. And on this episode is my final, update on this 31 Days of Horror Movie Challenge that took place throughout October. As of filming this video, it is no longer October, it is November now. And so I hope you all had a happy Halloween, a great Halloween, and a great time throughout October in general. Enjoying some horror movie. But yeah, if you've not been watching these latest updates and been watching along on social media, I've been doing the 31 Days of Horror Movie Challenge over the past 31 days of October, and doing a horror movie every single day. Some of them are comedy horror, different subgenres of horror, but doing different ones. So up to now, I've done up to day 19. So I'm just going to run through all the ones I've done previously, briefly. If you want to get full details of the movies I watched, check out them other videos. I've put a horror movie season playlist together on the YouTube channel as well, if you want to check that out, if you get some free time. Let's scan through these dead quickly. So, day 1, World War Z. Day 2, The Purge. Day 3, Shaun of the Dead. Day 4, The Crazies remake. Day 5, Resident Evil. Day 6, Evil Dead. And then we had Evil Dead 2. Day 7, Army of Darkness. Obviously, Evil Dead 3 at the 8th. Renfield on the 9th. On the 10th, we had Zombieland. Day after, we had Zombieland 2. On the 12th, we had the Halloween reboot movie. Day 13, Goosebumps. Day 14, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. 15th, The Babysitter. The 16th, Casper. 17th, Us. 18th, Haunt. 19th, Freaky. Now, let's move on to the next lot of movies I've been watching over this past couple of days, leading up to the finale of the 31 Days of Horror Movie Challenge that I've now completed. So, day 20, I watched a sequel of a movie that I watched previously during the challenge, The Babysitter. So I watched the Babysitter sequel called Killer Queen, Babysitter Killer Queen. This movie wasn't great, if I'm being honest. I really enjoyed the first one. It's like a horror movie version of Home Alone. The second one, it had its moments of decent, it was some moments that I thought, oh, that's pretty decent. But in general, I went away from that movie thinking it was just really wasn't worth making. I feel like it didn't need a sequel, and the sequel just didn't really add to what the first movie had personally for my watching that movie. So yeah, I wasn't super Killer Queen. I wasn't super queen. I wasn't super keen on this film, if I'm being honest. It wasn't great. So that one's The Babysitter Killer Queen. Day 21. I go now to an 80s slasher classic. We go to A Nightmare on Elm Street, and this is a movie I've watched before years ago. I remember having the DVD box set and watching all the movies years ago. Only watched them once. Never a massive fan of these movies, just not the movies I would go back to personally, because I'm not a big horror guy. I enjoy this movie, and what I will say, wow, it is super cheesy. Freddy Krueger, I put this in I think I mentioned this on when I put the post up, but I think it reminded me of, is it Evil Terry out of Rick and Morty, when they do the skit, or they do like a parody of Freddy Krueger, and it was the parody's not even that far away from what Freddy Krueger is in Nightmare on Elm Street. It is very cheesy at times. The ending kind of had me a bit lost, because I was like, so what happened with the ending? It was just like, be interesting to know what people's thoughts on that are, whether you feel the ending was good. I was a bit confused with the ending. I was like, you felt like it had a good finale, and then it kind of like spoiled it in the last moments a bit. But it was a decent watch. I'd be interested to watch the rest of the movies again, just to see how the rest of them go. I've heard they don't get much better than the original movie. A lot of people have said that. I think the first one and the second one is, a lot of people highly rate them, and then they kind of get a bit, they fizzle out a bit, their movies. But I enjoyed it. I'm glad I rewatched it. I wanted to throw in some of them 80s classics during this 31 days of horror movie challenge. So I'm glad I watched it. Number 22, so day 22, Ghost Ship. One I remember briefly watching as a kid, and never had a full memory of it. So for me, I count this as like a fresh watch, a new movie for me. I remember the opening scene, and the opening scene is really pretty horrible, really. On the ship, where all like they all get cut in half. No spoilers, it's literally the opening scene of the movie. And then it's obviously the ghost on the ship. Years later, this crew found this ship that was abandoned, and obviously you see this story unfold. I enjoy this movie. I thought it was a really solid movie. My only sort of criticism to this is obviously it's very much like a supernatural horror movie, this one. Not too heavy. I would have actually liked to have seen more ghosts for a movie that's called Ghost Ship. More of the supernatural. I didn't feel like we got too much of the supernatural in this. It sounds a bit bizarre, but I feel like it could have had a bit more supernatural. But it was a decent movie. I enjoyed Ghost Ship. I would definitely watch this again. I thought it was a really good movie. The 23rd of October, we go to a 90s classic. Again, one I've watched before many years ago. Scream, the first Scream movie. I remember watching these years ago, watching maybe the first couple of movies of the series. I can't remember how many. I'm pretty sure I've watched them all apart from the very latest one. But that first Scream movie is such a solid movie. Wes Craven, who he did the obviously Nightmare on Elm Street movies, he then moved on to do Scream a decade later. And Scream are just, solid movies. I forgot how good that first movie is as well. I really am wanting to watch the rest of the Scream movies now in order, 1, 2, 3, 4 and onwards. That first one though was just untouchable. I've watched even like the late, not the last one, but the one before that. That was good, but I thought the original still is the ultimate in my opinion. I think it's just such a well-made movie. Even though I know who is going to be behind the mask, I know it, and I'm sure if you've watched it before, you're going to remember it, and you maybe feel like it's spoiled. But I don't think it does. I feel like it still keeps you on, the edge a bit. Like with these movies, I think they're solid movies, and the first Scream one is a fantastic movie for a movie that now is like over 20 years old, probably getting on for. It must be getting on for nearly 30 years. I think it was like 95 or something like that. So it was around that time anyway. So it's coming up for probably like 30 years, which is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Solid movie, and I really enjoyed it on the rewatch. On the day 24th of October, we go to Final Destination. I think this was early 2000s, if I'm not wrong. So it's just out of the 90s, but it has a vibe of a 90s movie. Again, a movie I've watched a couple of these years ago when they came out. Obviously, Final Destination. Spoilers, one of the characters, they go on this school trip, they get on a plane, one of the guys on the trip has a premonition when he goes to sleep, and he can see the plane crashing. And then he wakes up, and he's on the plane, and he's like getting them off, and then next minute they're like, why did you do that? And then next minute the plane crashes. So he keeps on seeing all his friends die, but he's like, they've avoided death, but then death keeps on coming after them, and then the story unfolds. It is such a cool concept. I really enjoy this one. I think it's a really well made movie. I will say as well that the ending is so cool. I forgot how good the ending is, because it's one of them endings where it leaves it open, but then it's just such a big, it's the finale a movie needs. It's it gives you what you want from a movie ending. It's just like a big pop at the end. Great movie, great concept. Final Destination, well worth checking out. If you've not watched this one in a few years and you've kind of got your reservations about it, give it a shot again. It is great. I'm looking forward to. I've noticed on that one of the characters is in the sequel, so I couldn't really remember whether they were all like interconnected. So by the looks of it, the second one has some sort of link to the first movie. I couldn't remember. So I don't know if all the movies link together or they're separate stories, but the second one definitely has a link to the first movie with at least one character I know of. So yeah, well worth checking out Final Destination. October the 25th, I watched Beetlejuice. It's showtime. One movie I watched, I've said this story before on the channel, but yeah, I watched it before as a kid growing up, never super keen. Watched it this year again with the new movie coming out, and I really enjoyed it on a rewatch. And classic movie sort of like move for me. Sometimes I don't like a movie first time watch along. Watch it a second time and I can appreciate it a lot more, and I can see why a lot of people really enjoy Beetlejuice as a movie. So solid movie, really enjoyed it. Keaton's great, Tim Burton directing, solid movie. Wasn't super keen on the sequel. Was okay, but it wasn't nowhere near as good as the original. Original for me is just a classic Halloween movie. Around Halloween as well, it's great around October. Beetlejuice, a very enjoyable watch. Next, we have on day 26, I watched the new Ghostbusters movie. So, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I really enjoyed the last one, Afterlife. I'm not a big Ghostbusters fan. I'm not like a huge, like, diehard fan, admittedly. And I know it's had a lot of criticism in this movie, and I think maybe that's why I enjoyed it a bit more, because I didn't have that attachment to the fandom that some people may have. I imagine if it's like Star Wars, I'm a big Star Wars fan. If Disney put out a movie or a Star Wars thing, you know, like, for example, I've not seen it yet, but I know a lot of people didn't like that Acolyte TV show. They're like, this is not our Star Wars. And it's like, I think that's maybe the fandom who criticise this new one. Maybe a lot who like, this is not our Ghostbusters. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe just people just don't like that movie. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was something different in that universe. I enjoyed it with the icy villain, the icy setting, and back to the New York location as well, which had that familiarity of the first two movies. And yeah, I thought it was a good watch. I think it's got a really good cast. And I think it's got a blend of both. You know, it's got the old cast from the original movies and these newer cast members as well. So I think it's the best of both worlds, personally, in this movie. Frozen Empire, I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed it a lot more than Afterlife. I'm going to have to rewatch Afterlife back again to see whether I feel the same again, but I actually felt like I enjoyed it a bit more. So yeah, fun movie, that one. Next up, day 27. First time watch for me for a Hammer horror film. Curse of Frankenstein. Peter Cushing stars as Victor Frankenstein, and you have Christopher Lee as the monster of Frankenstein. And it is, look, these, I went into watching these movies for, you know, I took them for what they are. These are movies that made it in the 60s. These are movies that are now coming up to what, like, my maths is off. Like, well, they are like 60 odd years old, which is bizarre. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good movie. You know, it's more about the story, the acting. It's not no big action set pieces. It's the acting. But for me, I compare it to something like the original Planet of the Apes, which is very similar. And, you know, a movie I really do adore and really enjoy, and it's one of my favourite movies. So I enjoyed this. I thought it was, you know, I don't think it was perfect. I don't think it was like one of the films what I'd rave about, but I enjoyed the watch, especially over Halloween. I think Peter Cushing as Victor Frankenstein, as his character, who very much is like, he starts off, you think he's like this, like, his backstory, his parents dying, he inherits the wealth, and then you feel a bit bad for him, but then you realise over the story that he's actually the villain of the piece, really. And he feels at the end, you can see that obviously he feels bad about what he's done, but very much like the villain of the piece, Victor Frankenstein in this movie. But yeah, great acting. I think Christopher Lee as the monster as well is really good. I think he's just this, the look to him, the movement, the makeup, it's cool. So yeah, The Curse of Frankenstein, my first Hammer horror movie experience, and a very enjoyable one. Next up, so I go to day 28, and I thought, you know what, I liked the first one, let's go for another Hammer horror movie. A few of them were on TV recently, so I recorded a few. So I watched the first Dracula movie, starring Christopher Lee as Dracula, and you had Peter Cushing in there as Van Helsing, Dr. Van Helsing. And this is one, I think this is way more up my street. I enjoyed it even more so than the last movie. Christopher Lee is just perfect as Dracula. He just owns that role. And it's really weird seeing a young Christopher Lee as well, because obviously for me, in my age group, you know, I'm a 30-year-old guy. I think of Christopher Lee as this guy in his like 70s, 80s, in Lord of the Rings, in Star Wars. That's how I imagine him, and the voice, you know, that very like sort of like very old, like that grand voice. That sort of voice. And in this, it's very different. You know, it's a very younger guy, probably a guy in his like 20s, 30s. And his voice sounds so different as well. It's kind of weird to, like, you're watching it, you're like, wow, it's weird that's the guy who was in Lord of the Rings, he was in Star Wars, but he owns that role. And Van Helsing, I think Peter Cushing as the, you know, the protagonist as Van Helsing in this is great. I didn't realise that Van Helsing was in this, and I enjoyed this rendition of the character, because my Van Helsing would be Hugh Jackman as a Van Helsing. So it's really weird to see a totally different, and more reserved, and more sort of like not an big action guy, sort of this more like Dr. Scientist version of Van Helsing. It was really interesting to see, and I really did enjoy it. And great movie. I love the ending as well. The practical effects at the end when you see that end fight with Dracula. It is superb. A great movie. Really enjoyable. This is one I probably would watch again. Dracula. I think it was a really solid movie. Next up, day 29. Now, the last 3 days of October, I go to a movie I suppose is not as beloved in the franchise, but Ghostbusters 2. I know a lot of people prefer the original movie compared to this one, but I watched it. I enjoyed it. I do think the first one is better, but I still think it's a decent movie. I think it kind of gets criticisms. I think, it feels like a bit... I think one thing with Ghostbusters 2, it feels a bit like sometimes it's like parodying Ghostbusters, the first movie at times. Like, they're doing the parties where they're singing the Ghostbusters song, and they're like, everyone's like, these are like, is a bit of a hoax, what they did and stuff like that. No one really believes what they did. It feels like the vibe of the first movie, they feel like they don't believe what they did was actually true. Like, it was like the hoaxers, the pranksters. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought the ending was cool, like this big ending with the Statue of Liberty, and I actually couldn't remember the ending. So it was funny to watch it again. I enjoyed it. I think, Bill Murray as Peter Venkman. One scene that stands out is when he's like doing this TV show host as a psychic. That's a really fun scene. But I think it's a good cast again, a good movie. Not the best Ghostbusters movie, but I think that they're enjoyable, these. You've got to take them for what they are. They're family-friendly movies over Halloween. They're fun to watch. You don't take Ghostbusters too seriously. I don't anyway. Maybe some people do. If you do, maybe, I don't know, take a bit of a chill, have a cup of tea, have a cup of coffee and a biscuit, because you need to lower it down. Next up, we have day 30. We have The Lost Boys. What a classic movie. Vampire movie. Kiefer Sutherland as David. You've got the Frog Brothers in there. Great characters. Everything about the music of this movie, the style, just the visuals of this movie. It's just a cool movie. It's a cool movie to watch. Take away the Halloween aspect of it. It's a cool movie to watch, The Lost Boys. I think it's a fun, cool movie over Halloween. Kiefer Sutherland as this lead vampire is great. I just like the story, the setting. It's just a fun movie to watch. I like vampires. I like vampire movies, and this is the cream of the crop. It's a cream of the crop, yeah. And yeah, it's a solid movie from start to finish. I think he pulls you in, and it's horror comedy. It's not too heavy. I think the Frog Brothers are great as well. When they're like, there's these two guys who run this comic book shop for the mum and dad. And they're like, yeah, we're vampire killers. And like, for a fact they've never killed a vampire in their life. And then they go in, and I love that end battle when the vampires are coming into the house. And again, it vibes of like Home Alone again, where it's like they're doing the steaks, they're putting like the onions in the bath and stuff like that. Not the onions, the garlic in the bath, not onions, putting carrots in the bath. But yeah, great movie from start to finish, a really enjoyable one. The ending as well, I think that is another one where the ending is just spot on, where you feel like you've seen the ending, you don't see that ending coming. I like the ending, just like with the car, it's great. Finally, October 31st, to finish this challenge, I had to do Fright Night, a movie I had only watched for the first time this year. I had watched the remake a few years ago, enjoyed that, and I heard lots of great things about the original movie. Watched it this year, really did enjoy it, and I think for me, Roddy McDowall as Peter Vincent is a standout. I'm a big Planet of the Apes fan of their movies, the original TV show. Seeing him in human form is still bizarre to me, but seeing him as Peter Vincent in this TV host, movie actor in Halloween horror movies, and then the kid has the neighbour move in who's a vampire. He's trying to kill him, and he hires Peter Vincent, vampire killer, to help him, and it's just a fun comedy horror movie again. Classic movie though. The music again, I think the 80s does it with the music, doesn't it? The 80s music is just bang on, absolutely just so I think is it Brad? It's the guy, I think it's the guy who did the music. I might be wrong. I'm pretty sure it's the guy who did the music in Terminator. Maybe I'm wrong here. I'm pretty sure it is who did the music for Fright Night. But yeah, great movie. One I really enjoyed watching on Halloween. I think it's just got, this is like, Fright Night for me has got vibes, and Lost Boys especially, they're like Halloween night movies, most definitely. Superb film. So yeah, Roddy McDowall, great. The whole cast, the story, the feel of that movie, spot on. Absolutely spot on. But yeah, they are the movies I've watched over this past weekend. That is the 31 Days of Horror Movie Challenge completed. I did it, ladies and gents. Yes. Thoughts on the challenge, would I do it again? You know what? This has been a really fun challenge to do. Took me out of my comfort zone a bit as well as some of these movies, but I've pushed myself a bit. I've watched a bunch of new movies what I've enjoyed about it is I've watched a bunch of new movies that I've never seen. Some I've seen before, but some of them I've never seen. New movie experience is what I always love, and that is great to see. It's been fun as well, you know, interacting with new people in the community who've maybe never seen it before. The social interaction I've really enjoyed, discussing new movies that I've never seen before with new people, and on the videos as well. It's been a fun challenge to do. I really did enjoy it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I enjoyed it. What I will say, watching a movie a day, this is the most movies I've ever watched in a month. I watch a lot of movies, but you know, this is definitely the most movies I've watched in a month ever. So I will say, sometimes it is like when you're trying, you know, you get in from work, from the movie Cheertown cinema, and then you've got to put a movie on. You just sometimes you're a bit tired. You just want to put like a TV show on, just like fall asleep. Sometimes it is like a bit like tiresome doing that, but overall, I can't complain. It's been a fun challenge to do. I've enjoyed it. Will I do it next year? Maybe. I said to Ben, aka Rider Rated 18, I might do it like the Olympics, do it every 4 years. We'll see. We might do it next year. But yeah, let me know your thoughts, and let me know what some of your favourite movies you watched as well over Halloween. What were some of your Halloween, on movies on Halloween night as well? Let me know your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, ladies and gents, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below with all your thoughts on this video and all your thoughts on this challenge. If you're interested as well, like I said, I put a horror movie season playlist together, Halloween movie season, on the YouTube channel if you're interested in checking out a few different videos. We also had on the channel this past week the Halloween special annual podcast hosted by the Ghoulish Mean Cheer, that I will link that in as well, somewhere around here. But yeah, thank you very much for watching this video, ladies and gents. Remember to spread a bit of movie cheer, and as always, I will see you next time.